Robin Stephenson, thanks for joining me on the ITA College Tennis Coaches podcast.
Thanks for having me. I listen to a lot of these of yours, so I'm happy to be here with you today.
All right. Well, I know we've been trying to do this for throughout the summer, and we're eventually able to land on a date. So I've been looking forward to this all summer. But want to take you back to your early days of coaching. You started your career as a volunteer at Georgia Tech. Obviously, we're seeing Brian Shelton on the television all the time now, with his son Ben doing so well on the ATP Tour and Grand Slam tournaments. But I think he's heralded as maybe one of the greatest coaches in college tennis, winning both a men's and women's NCAA title. I don't know if anybody else has done that. I'm sure there's somebody at least. But what did you learn from Brian throughout that experience that you actually continue to apply today?
Yeah, I mean, we could do a whole podcast on on what I learned from Brian Shelton.
Yeah.
I mean, I would just say, first of all, I don't know how many people know kind of the story or whatever, but when I was graduating from Alabama, my coach at the time was friends with Brian, and I think sometimes in life it's a little bit of luck and being in the right place at the right time, or putting yourself around the right people. But somehow, my coach Jenny had asked Brian if he would coach me when I was going to go play on tour,
Mm.
and so I decided to move to Atlanta. With the dream of playing on tour and doing that, and Brian had agreed to coach me. Which now that I'm a head coach, I don't even have two kids at home. Like, I cannot imagine. I mean, he agreed to, the hours that he put in with me, whether that was like individual time or meetings or when I was on the road, helping with scheduling, talking to me after matches, like doing that on top of having a team and a family, like it's unbelievable. And I'm forever indebted to that guy for, what he kind of, set me up for my career. But, yeah, so we sat down very early on in our coach player situation, and basically I told him that I knew I kind of wanted to get into college coaching after I was done playing. That was my thought. And so we kind of came up with a plan that I would be the volunteer assistant and then he would coach me, and it was like this kind of trade-off. So yeah, I was in a unique situation where I felt like I was almost like a ninth player on the team because I was training with them every day. I was in the gym with them. I was on court. I was doing all the stuff the team did. I basically just was in team practices, and then on the weekends I was coaching them. So it was pretty cool. But yeah, so it was interesting because I was learning at the time. I was learning a lot as a player during the hours I was on court from him, and then I felt like then I had the opportunity to be in these, coaches meetings and team meetings and, pre-match, post-match stuff. And so then I was changing my kind of brain and learning as a coach. And so, as I've gone into my coaching career, there's been so many things over the years that I kind of go back and think about. I mean, early on, a lot of times I'd be like, what would Brian do in this situation? What would he say? How would he handle it? And I just had so much respect for the way he did things. I think number one, I mean, his work ethic is unbelievable. Like, he's there first thing in the morning till whenever he needs to be. He goes above and beyond. I mean, his investment level in all of his players and in the program was incredible, and there wasn't a thing he wouldn't do. I feel like, he's just very humble and very hardworking. I also just feel like he had the ability to see the game and break the game down in a way that I've not heard before from a coach. Like, he can just simplify things for each person. And yeah, I feel like the way that he sees the game and then is able to communicate it was something that I found very helpful and something that I try to do. I think another thing I really took from him was that he's not somebody that had like ever raised his voice. I would say he's like firm but fair. He was very much like people knew the stand. He has very, very high standards, and everybody was going to meet them, and he's going to make sure of that. But I don't think I ever heard him raise his voice. I mean, you see him now on TV, right? Like when he's out there with Ben, he's just so calm and cool, and I think he just gives people a lot of freedom to play and make mistakes. And yeah, it's never, nobody ever felt like, I think, like I said, he had very high standards, but never ever was going to raise his voice or make somebody feel bad for something. And I think in that way, it's something that I've really adopted, is like being able to play and practice and compete where, with freedom, right? Where there's no fear and you're able to just kind of go out there and work on things. And I remember one quote he would always say is, "Don't sacrifice being good when you can be great." And it was like, people would go into matches and he's like, "Don't go out there and win that match, you know, 1-1 and play the wrong way." He was like, maybe the match is going to be a little bit closer, but work on the right things and do the right things so that you are investing into the match and investing into the future, and kind of having this big picture mindset and long-term mindset, not just today. It was very much like, where do we want to be in January? Where do we want to be in March and May, next year and 2 years, And so I think that's something that I really learned, and I feel like just kind of having confidence in the process, and the way that he did things was, yeah, just the ultimate professional. And yeah, I was very, very lucky to be around him and be able to kind of pick his brain. And who knew that, we'd go on to win a national championship. He'd go on to win it at Florida and do what he's doing now with Ben. But I mean, I knew obviously the second I was around the guy that it was something special.
Yeah. And so were you coaching when they won the national championship?
Yeah, so that was my first year. So that's what I mean. I mean, talk about being in the right place at the right time. I graduated in '06 and I moved to Atlanta immediately that summer. And then, yeah, I was with Brian that whole summer into the fall. And yeah, that was '07 spring was when we won NCAAs, and it was incredible, and it was funny because I was playing, but I was also coaching and part of the staff. And at the time, I was like, "Oh, this is this is fun. This is easy. I want to get into coaching." And then I remember when I first became a head coach, I was like, "Oh my God! Like this is, it had taken him whatever. I think it was his ninth year there when they finally won it, and I realized how much goes into something like that. And I was lucky enough to get there when all the pieces came together."
Yeah. And that group of players who won that, I don't know, it seemed like a really special group. I mean, I was coaching at Northwestern at the time and played against them, and then remember watching them making that run to the final, and then obviously winning. But what are some of the characteristics of that team that you remember that you're trying to infuse in your teams now at Washington?
Yeah, that team was, I mean, yeah, the team was very special. And it was interesting because, on paper, I don't think anybody at the beginning of the year would have picked
No.
Georgia Tech to win the championship, right? And I mean, it was a lot of things. But the saying on the team that year was, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And that was kind of the motto, and that was what was infused into the team every day. I mean, the work ethic on that team and what, we had put in was incredible. Like it was on court, off court, meetings, journaling. Like that's the other thing with Brian, is like his attention to detail is unbelievable. Like in terms of not just on the court and working with each player on, different patterns and things, and just people being very clear on their game style and building their confidence. But also just like little decisions every day. The girls were very much into journaling that year, taking notes on every match they played, every opponent they played, so that when we'd see that opponent later down the road, I mean, the girls were helping each other with, "Hey, last time I played this girl, this is what happened, this is what worked." I mean, we would sit and have pre-match meetings and break every single player down, break every doubles team down. And I just feel like it was almost like a snowball, where things just kind of kept rolling and just gaining momentum, and people gaining confidence. And yeah, by the time it got to the end of the year, I mean, it felt like the girls had so much belief. And I remember that week when we won it, we would lose the doubles point, and we lost the doubles point to UCLA. I think that was in the semis. And I remember after the doubles point, like Brian could not have been more calm. And I think if he would have been stressed at all, maybe it was different. No, that was the finals. And I mean, I've never seen somebody so calm, just like, all right, like we're good. And I feel like there was just a confidence. And I think it was just from the preparation, like the work that everybody put in was just incredible.
Yeah. And then Robin, so you finished up your time playing professionally on the WTA tour, helping Georgia Tech. Tell us about your journey then from being a volunteer at Georgia Tech, being having been a top college player and then a WTA player. What did your journey look like then to get you to being the head coach at University of Washington?
Yeah, so yeah, my journey is a little interesting. I was playing full time for a few years on tour, and I ended up getting injured. And at that point, it was one of those things where I was like, okay, do I want to, rehab and do all this and come back and keep playing? Or for me, I was lucky because I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And it was just a matter of if I was ready to close the door on playing and get into coaching. And so it took me a little bit of time to figure that out. But once I decided I was ready to stop, I went back and I was actually a volunteer at Georgia Tech for one more season. That was in 2011, I believe, spring, which is pretty cool because it was Brian, Ali Silverio was the assistant coach, and then myself. And I had actually coached Silverio her senior year when we won NCAAs. I was on the staff when she was a senior. And then, anyways, the three of us came back together, and that was probably one of the most fun years of coaching I've ever had. It was just a blast, and I love those two. But then, anyways, so then there ended up being an opening at Georgia State, which is a mile down the road from Georgia Tech, and I was living in Atlanta, and so that worked out. So I went down and was the full-time assistant at Georgia State. And then after my first year there, Miha, who's now the head coach at West Virginia, he got the West Virginia job. And so at the time, the administration was just like, all right, do you want to be the interim head coach? And I was like, all right. I was like, late 20s and, had a few years of volunteer experience, 1 year as the assistant. And so I stepped in, was the head coach that year. And honestly, it was the best thing that could have happened to me, like working at a mid-major and just grinding and seeing another side of it. And we had a fantastic year. We won our conference and then beat Tennessee first round of the tournament. I had a girl on the team, Abigail Tara Apisa, who made semifinals of NCAA singles that year. And so we had a really, really good year. And then from there, the Washington job was open that summer. There was actually a lot of jobs open that summer. And, I didn't think that I was going to get looks just because I had 1 year of head coaching experience. But for whatever reason, they brought me out to interview, and they'd interviewed a bunch of people, and I think I kind of fit the criteria of what they were looking for. And to be honest, this was kind of my dream job, like all along. And I didn't think that, like I said, the timing was going to be great, but it ended up being fantastic. And here I am 11 years later.
Yeah, yeah, 11 years. Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have guessed that,
I
but
know, same.
yeah, yeah. All right, we won't go there. So we're recording this. It's July 31st. You're a couple of months removed now from the 2024-25, I guess, academic year, the season. Have you had time to digest last season and kind of what is that process for you, and what are some of those lessons maybe you learned through your 10th season, I guess, heading into your 11th season that you're again going to try and apply accordingly?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely had time to kind of process, and it's always good. I feel like the first month or so after season, or a couple weeks, I try to give myself a little bit of space from everything and just kind of come down from the the adrenaline and all of the highs and lows and stuff. And then after that, really try to start thinking about what went well, what didn't, how can we get better. Just kind of moving into next year, and I think. Yeah, the lessons learned for me, I feel like every year becoming just more and more clear. I think for me, it's just all about the people, and I feel like last year the last several years, we've just had fantastic people on the team, and for me, it's just really important that the day to day for everybody is something that we all enjoy, and everybody's excited to show up to practice. Everybody's excited to go on trips. Like this year, obviously there was some lessons learned with joining the Big Ten, being in a new conference, new travel, dealing with more jet lag, dealing with longer flights. and just thinking about that stuff going forward, what that looks like. But more than anything, I think just sticking to our values and what's important in the program. And I think we're in a good spot where, we know exactly what we're looking for with people, whether that's recruits or staff or, people that have a hand in our program. And yeah, I mean, I think we're looking. We've got 4 new girls coming in next year, and so I've turned the page, and yeah, just looking forward to getting started in September with the new group.
Yeah, no, makes sense. And as you said, you listen to this podcast sometimes that we have lots of conversations about, I guess, the seasons, how coaches are managing their teams in season, but we haven't talked a lot about what happens in the summer months. And obviously coaches have different philosophies as to what that looks like, and their expectations of players maybe sticking around and doing summer school and practicing versus going out and playing tournaments. But just from a communication standpoint throughout the summer, and especially those new players that are coming in, your 4 new players heading to you this fall, what does communication with your incoming players, your returning players, what are, I guess, the expectations these days? Because I think maybe in the past, maybe when I was coaching, like you said, the season ends, you're like, whew, thank
Yeah.
God the season's over and I've got the summer, and give the players their space kind of thing, and you don't want to, I don't know, you're picking your moments, right? Your voice can get a little boring or stale if you're just on them all the time. But yeah, what is your philosophy to communication? How do you think about how much to communicate with your players, either individually, as a group throughout the summer? And then also, how do you think about onboarding your new players that are coming in, and having them hopefully hit the ground running once they get on
Yeah.
campus?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I've learned over the years, I think, that everyone is very different. I think when I first started out, I was like, all right, everybody needs to be playing this many tournaments and training and kind of doing things the way that like I did things and the way that worked for me. And I learned very quickly, like some of the best players I've had here, like they just needed a bit of space in the summer. And I think the most important thing is that people come back in the fall, like refreshed and recharged and ready to go, and mentally more than anything, like obviously being fit and playing matches and all of that is extremely important, and the standards are there for the team and they know what to expect when they come back. But I think, some people are out playing tournaments almost every week, and then some people are, they need to get home and take a bit of a break and spend time with their family and friends. And I used to stress when there was, when there were girls that took a bit of space. That's something that I feel like Georgia helped me with, because her and I couldn't have been more different with how we did our summers when we were in college.
Right.
And so she would always be like, Robin, it's okay. Like, it's okay. She's not going to forget how to play tennis. So, and being able to kind of see that perspective, like, okay, not everybody's wired the same way. So, in terms of communication, I feel like it's pretty consistent. I'm keeping in touch with them, and it's not, I'm not bombarding them about tennis all summer, like asking about practice and what they're doing and all this kind of stuff. It's really just checking in to see what they're up to, how their family's doing, if they're playing tournaments, obviously hearing about their matches and being available to talk through that and before matches and stuff. But I would say more than anything, just keeping up communication and the relationship through the summer, and just being interested in their lives and what they're doing. And yeah, I mean, the girls will reach out to me all the time too. They see something that reminds them of something, or they're, talking about excited to come back in the fall and how they, miss the team and everybody. And so it just depends, and like I said, everybody's different, and I try to meet each person where they're at and what they need. And we've had summers where we've had a bunch of people staying in town and training, and it's been great. And we've had other summers where, everybody's gone home. And I think with that stuff, I think it can fluctuate. I'm not one that's like, all right, every summer needs to look the exact same. Somebody's freshman year to somebody's senior year, they might have different needs that summer going into season. And I think I just try to understand, like I said, where they're at, and do what's best. So, and then in terms of the new girls coming in, I mean, I've got some things that I send out every summer to the incoming people, just to get to know them a little bit more. We do like a self-awareness survey basically, and another thing that's kind of like a rundown of the program with our values and their vision and our vision, and just trying to get to know them better so that they understand, when they get here, kind of what we're all about and what's important to us. But more than anything for me and the other coaches, to get to know them and how they operate. And it's one of them is kind of this overall program, like from top to bottom, and it's kind of a long thing that I'm not sure they they enjoy filling out, but it is very, very helpful tool for us to get a ton of information that's kind of going to drive the beginning of the fall, and the decisions that we make and the meetings that we have and stuff. So that's kind of how we go about it, and feel like onboarding the new girls, it's a little more seamless that way when we have as much information as possible going into the fall.
Yeah. And then with that self-awareness intake, obviously you're looking at those results heading in, and trying to think about how you'll, I guess, help mold that player. But do you return to that at any point in the season and going like, wow, they gave me these answers, but they're not quite accurate? And how do you
Yeah.
resolve that discrepancy? Or do you just let it go
Yeah.
and keep going?
Yeah, we also do this thing. I don't know if you've heard of the DISC assessment. We
Sure.
started working years ago with the company Athlete Assessments,
Yep.
and so we do this DISC assessment. And actually, in our athletic department here at UW, we have somebody that works with that stuff. And I'm a big believer in it. We have everybody do that when they're coming in as well, and it's like a behavioral assessment, right? So it's like, how do people handle stress? How do they communicate? How are they when they're at their best? How are they when they're at their worst? Um, Do's and don'ts, and you kind of get an idea of if somebody's highly analytical, if somebody is a higher, like, just goal oriented driven person, or if somebody's just a rule follower and is gonna. So you kind of get a sense of like who the leaders are going to be, who's going to have louder voices, who's going to kind of, and that stuff. Honestly, it's crazy how accurate it is. I have not seen one where I'm like, this person is so different to the answers that we're getting. And honestly, same with the self-awareness stuff that we have them do. I think, I mean, I feel like the level of player we have coming in, they're pretty in tune with themselves and what they need and what's important and how they are and how they operate. So yeah, I haven't seen a lot. Like, I haven't had a lot where I'm like, yeah, you are not who you said you were. It's more so like, yes, this makes sense. And like, we spend a lot of time really trying to understand each person individually, and what motivates them, what's going to bring out the best in that person, and then obviously bringing them all together as a team. So that kind of stuff is really important for us. And I think, yeah, it's stuff that we go to when we first start having our individual meetings. And then we also have team meetings about this stuff too. So we'll do some disc stuff as a team so that the girls all understand each other's behaviors. And I found it's helpful because it kind of eliminates a lot of the assumptions that people make. Like, oh, this person's acting like this, they must, and all these kind of little things that can happen on a team. I think they're like, no, this person's acting like this, they must be stressed, or something must be going on, let me go check on this person, rather than taking something personally. And so I feel like that kind of stuff has really helped our team culture. And our girls come from all kinds of different backgrounds and countries and beliefs, and so I think it's been really helpful for us going into a year, starting out with a deep understanding of each individual and them together. It's been really, really helpful.
And Robin, have you seen if you've been doing this for several years, have you seen any trends in the type of personalities that are coming through, or is there a lot of similarities between kind of, I don't know, high achieving, these
Yeah.
student athletes? I mean, is there anything that you've seen that allows you to, I don't know, adapt accordingly? Like, you recognize, okay, this is what I'm dealing with most years with most student athletes, or even recruiting, that you're looking for that type of player. I guess, how has that information influenced how, again, you go about your business?
Yeah, I think it has influenced, and I think it's not the biggest thing, but it is definitely there, because I think each team needs like some variety, right? Like, you can't have all 8 or 9 or 10 people just like these, deeply analytical, not really going to speak up. Like you're going to need people on the team that are the drivers that are going to speak up, but you don't want too many of those either, right? And so I think I also think that Washington as a school attracts a certain type of person I've found over the years that's very driven academically as well, that wants to do well and succeed on the court, in the classroom, in the community, just like well-rounded people. And I would say that we do tend to get a lot of our recruits and people on the team tend to have a higher level of just more of an analytical mind, I guess, which is I do have that, but I think I'm higher in the other categories. Like I'm very social. I'm always going to be talking, always going to be, kind of outgoing. I'm very like goal oriented and driven and all of that. And so it took me a little while to know how to relate and communicate sometimes with people that were opposite of me or very different. And also just kind of understanding how that looks on a team. And so it does drive some decisions. I think for me, it's been really, really helpful in terms of just, like understanding somebody, communicating. Some people just need to know, they want to know everything. They want to know what, the week looks like, the month looks like, down to the minute. They want to know what we're doing at practice. Like if they can know what we're doing from the first minute to the last minute of practice, they want to know that. And then there's other people like, whatever, just like, tell me as we go. It doesn't bother me at all. And so just trying to like understand each person's needs, and like some people just do way better when they know what's coming, and some people, like I said, don't care. So I try to make sure that I'm towing that line with everybody, and just communication. It's really been helpful.
Yeah, and then Robin, you're so well established now as a head coach, and you're heading into your 11th season at Washington and all the rest of it that we've discussed already. But so how do you maybe evaluate yourself, and how do you keep challenging yourself to be a better coach?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, to be honest, I don't think there's anybody that could be harder on me than myself. I've always been that way, and so I'm constantly like, I feel like the self-analysis and evaluation is nonstop, right? It's just like every situation that I handle, every match, every practice, I feel like I'm always evaluating if things can, be better, how they can be better, and asking for feedback from my team, from people on the staff, my administrators. I think I mean, I look back to the beginning of my career, often, and kind of just to keep that perspective, and then be like, okay, where have we come from when I started, and where are we now, and where do we want to go, and it's been nice to be in the same place for a long time too, to like really feel that we're sustaining what I kind of set out to do, and but I there's a lot more we want to do here too, and so I think that's the thing that keeps driving me. It's like when I took this job, I felt like it was a bit of a diamond in the rough, and I felt like we could do some special things, and we have, but I think there are a lot of things we haven't done that I want to do, and so that's what the driver is, and I feel like I've been able to bring in recruits that share that vision and want to do that. So I think for me it's like I said, just perspective of how far we've come, but also how far we still need to go and what that's going to take, and just kind of continue to evaluate myself based on how we're going to get there,
And Robin, then, I mean, as you're talking with younger coaches, maybe even players that you've coached that want to get into the coaching profession, what are some skills that you believe they should be trying to learn early in their career? Maybe some things that you learned from Brian or Jenny Mines that they encourage you, hey, you should go figure this, and this out if you want to have a long, successful career in this industry. Is there anything that comes to mind now as you speak with younger coaches?
Yeah. I think the first thing that comes to my mind when you ask that question is just, especially now, is just the ability to adapt. I think things are just changing constantly, especially now in the college athletics landscape. But even when things aren't changing that much, I just think from a day-to-day basis, things are different. Anything can happen. No 2 days are the same. just being able to adapt and stay true to, who you are and what's important. And, we preach to our players all the time, right? Like control the things you can control. And that saying is, you say, it's like all the time, but it's true for us too. Sometimes when I see coaches kind of losing their minds and, complaining about this and that and going all over I'm like, it's the same stuff, right? Like we've got to be able to control the things we can and know what's important and stick to those things. And I think, yeah, when I think back to when I was younger, earlier in my career, or I'm thinking about a younger coach now, like it's important to kind of pick your battles and not get so caught up in every little thing and wanting to control every little thing. It's like some stuff you got to understand, you need to let it slide. Some things are very important, you need to address it. And just knowing when to just sit with something for a little bit and yeah, just kind of not reacting to every little thing that happens, because it's when you're dealing with a lot of, young people on a team, there's going to be a lot of ups and downs, and being able to stay steady and constant through that. And I would say the other thing is just the, if you want to do this at a high level, just like the work that takes and the amount of hours that it takes and the investment level, and knowing that you want to do that. And I think it's a lifestyle more than it is a job. At least to me, it's nonstop and it's all year round, and you don't take days off really, right? And so knowing that and wanting to invest in other people is a big commitment, and you got to be ready to do that. And it's rewarding, but it's definitely a big commitment.
That it is. And yeah, you spoke briefly about the move from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten and some of the challenges there with travel. But what discussions, I mean, what updates? I know again, things are changing every day. We're getting more updates literally by the hour, it feels like at this point. But is there anything that discussions you're having with your peers at UW or with your administrators, anything they're sharing with you about what this next year or two within college athletics looks like? I feel like the Big Ten now has some stability, and a lot of other conferences do not. But look, there could be an announcement tomorrow that, I don't know,
Yeah.
Clemson joining the Big Ten. Who knows? We'll see what comes. But yeah, just any insights, anything. Every time I speak with a coach, I'm always interested to hear what their AD's telling them, especially about Olympic sports.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, as far as I know, things are, business as usual. Obviously there's going to be big changes and things coming, and it's going to look different. I think we're all curious what that's going to look like. I'm not sure yet. I do know that in terms of a department here for us, like we're all just trying to work together to make sure that the student athletes don't feel any of the effects of some stuff that's coming, right? Obviously, for some Olympic sports, there's going to be some budget cuts here and there. Trying to keep up with the revenue sharing and all of that. For me, I think, that's one of those things where I try not to get too riled up about anything, because I feel like you said, things can change any day. And I do think like the pendulum is swinging so far this way, like at some point it's got to come back to the middle in some sense. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to just focus on like my team and my program and not getting too carried away with what's going on with football and basketball and ball. Like the more you start comparing and all of that, it's not fun. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, we're going to be supported the same way we always have been. I feel very confident that, every sport in our department is going to continue to be supported, and they want to be successful. So yeah, not a lot of changes, I wouldn't say. I'm just more curious, yeah, what the next year or two is going to bring and what that's going to look like. But in terms of our program and stuff, like, and I don't know, like with the Big Ten travel and everything, I'm just curious also with that, like what's the future going to hold with, I know a lot of non-conference matches and stuff. We need to stay more regional. But for us to be flying to New Jersey on a weekend and and playing and coming back is crazy. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, no, interested to see where that heads. Because the Big Ten as well, right? I mean, they reduced the number of teams that are invited to the year-end championship. Am I
Yeah,
saying that? Yeah.
yeah.
So, and I know that's happening across numerous conferences, and but yeah, it's it's messy as we know. But
Yeah, yeah.
let's not dwell on that. Let's
Yeah,
go
good thing we don't have to make those decisions.
yeah, yeah. Okay, rapid fire. What's one book that has had a major impact on you as a coach?
Um, there's a lot, but the one book that comes to mind first is this book called The Way of the Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman. I don't know if you've heard of it. Some other books by like Eckhart Tolle. I'm very much into like, the mind and mindset and that. So I would say any Ryan Holiday, those kind of books are
Yeah,
up my alley. Yeah.
yeah, I like them too. Favorite drill to do with your team?
My favorite drill or their favorite drill?
Uh,
Those are
your
different.
favorite drill, not
My
their.
favorite drill.
Yeah,
Well, I'll say my favorite and their favorite. There's and I got to give Georgia credit for this one because she brought it, but it's called fastest set. I don't know if you've ever done this, but it's basically all four up at the net. No lobs, no alleys. Coach feeds to the deuce side player at the net. Coach is on the behind the service line on one side. You feed to the deuce side player. You play it out, all four up. Whoever wins that point, 15 love, feed to the ad side player, play it out, 15 all, whatever, and you play game scoring, jog around like you would, switch sides like you would in a normal set. And you play normal set scoring, and it's just quick reaction, volley to volley, gets pretty intense. And one set, it takes 10, 15 minutes, but it's a good one to get people going and get the hands ready, and it's a good doubles drill.
yep. Okay, biggest strength you have as a coach?
Um, I would say, I would honestly say just like how much I care and how much I try to understand my players and the people that are involved in the program. Yeah, I would just say how much I care and how invested I am into the people.
Best piece of advice you've ever received as it relates to coaching or just life in general?
Um, that's a simple one, and that's going to be a Brian Shelton piece of advice. When I was getting into coaching, he told me very early on to just be myself. I think it's very easy when you get into coaching, you want to emulate, your college coach or junior coach or whoever. And, Brian was like, don't try to be like me, don't try to be like Jenny, don't try to be like Daryl. Like, you don't take lessons from those people and apply what you feel is important. But he told me very early on, yeah, like players are going to know when you're being authentic, and yeah, you just need to be true to yourself and be yourself. And I think it took me some time to kind of work through that early on, but it's been something that I've thought about, and I think is very important for anybody.
Yeah. One rule change that could make college tennis more interesting to the regular sports fan?
I've got a realistic one and a very unrealistic one. So the realistic one, I would say substitutions, because I think it would be, you keep everybody involved. I just think it'd be fun. I played a couple world team tennis matches back in the day, and the substitutions made it so much fun. The unrealistic one is something I've talked about for a long time. It's like you basically keep score as you would in another sport. So it's like a combined. So let's say, and I don't know how you would do it, like if you play doubles first and then singles or simultaneous or whatever, but like every game counts and you just have the scoreboard up there. And so the fans are watching, and like every game our team wins goes to our count. And then every game the other team wins. And so you just see it kind of racking up over time. And I don't know, maybe you play for time or you play up to a certain amount of games, but I just think like that idea, it's like every point, every game matters. And I think it'd be pretty exciting. We try to play some like different formats in practice sometimes to keep things fun, and like that UTS thing, and we'll play like different styles of scoring, and yeah, I think something like that would be pretty fun.
Yeah, I know Brad Dancer at Illinois tried that several years ago.
Really?
Actually, a couple of dual matches or maybe a double header he played. So,
Oh, cool. Yeah, and also just counting like one, two, three, four instead of like I mean, I think we would just get more fans if people understood what was going on. I think right now when fans come and they see the scoreboard and there's like 100 different numbers on the scoreboard, they have 15, there's 7, there's a 6, like they're like, what is going on?
We don't do ourselves any favors for
Yeah,
that,
it's
to be
confusing.
sure. Yeah, I agree. All right, one thing you hope your players have learned from you by the time they've graduated from your program.
That's a good question. I mean, I hope a lot. Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing I hope that they all leave with is, well, a couple things. I mean, number one, I think just a sense of confidence in themselves and belief in themselves that they have learned that, yeah, their unique strengths and who they are and what they bring to, our team and then on into the world is, yeah, something unique and special, and that. Yeah, that they're stronger and better and more capable than they thought, and also I think just that relationships matter more than anything. I hope that they learn that the relationships they have with their teammates and coaches and staff and people and moving on into the world, that the relationships that they build and invest in are the most important things in their lives.
I love both of those, Robin, but the first one about self-confidence, I haven't heard that answer being given before, but my sense is this generation just growing up with social media and comparing themselves constantly and lacking, maybe outwardly they pretend they're confident,
Yeah,
but I think they're really struggling with that self-confidence and self-belief. So I love that, and
yeah.
well done on trying to instill that. I'm no doubt you've been very successful at it. But Robin, this has been great. Thanks for sharing some time with me, and look forward to getting this out to the coaches.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate you having me, and thanks for all you do too.
Thanks, Robin.